you sump pump training today. Ryan Tygeson with Rocky Mountain Mechanical. We're just going to go over the systems themselves. We're going to go over just over our agenda. We're going to go over the main duplex pump. We're going to go over the elevator pump, and then we're going to go over maintenance and a little bit of what the operations are and some of the issues that you need to watch out for on those systems. Styles of pump systems here. We've got a duplex pump package, and then we have the elevator pump package. We're going to start on the duplex pump. The control panel is simply just going to give us a display on the enclosure. It's going to let us know what's going on and at a glance of what's happening in the system. Pilot lights on the front of it simply are just going to indicate power on, high water, whether the pumps are running or not. There is an audio alarm on the side of that as well. If it does make a noise, that's where it's going to come from, is that little side horn. Inside the cabinet, there's 3 switches. Well, you've got the disconnects for each individual pump, and then you've got a hand-on auto switch, and those are going to be for each pump and then also for the alarm. So that can be turned off if you don't want the alarm to run. That also can be interlocked to the DDC controls if they needed to do that. The test buttons are just the hands. If you move all of those to hand, that will cycle the alarm. You're going to cycle the pumps. You can test operation and make sure things are operating without actually filling the sump up with water. Continuing on, the system's set up with 4 floats. The very lowest float is an on-off operator. The system does not have power until that bottom float comes up. Once the bottom float is up and the water level keeps rising, we're going to hit the second float, and that's what's going to actually kick the pump on. And then the pump's going to go down until it drops that on-off back off. In the event of the pump failure, it's going to keep going up and it's going to hit that third switch. When it hits that third switch, that's going to kick the second pump on. So if it sees that the first pump is not keeping up, water level keeps going, second pump kicks on, and they'll both run until we completely shut off. We can see that by, there's our operator, single stage, and there's our lead lags. Now in the event that both pumps have failed or we're beyond capacity, it will hit this very top one, which is the high alarm. Anytime that one goes off, both pumps will engage no matter what, and it will set off the alarm. That will stay active until that goes back down. Both pumps will stay active until the alarm will shut off as soon as that high water goes off, but both pumps will stay active till that low water does shut off all the way at the end. Motor protection is pretty simple. They're just simple starters in the units. They've got overloads in the bottoms and then just a single contactor. All they are is a simple operator. When the controls call for it, it's going to pull the contacts in. If these overloads trip, there is not an indicator on the front panel, and it's just going to keep filling that until it tries to kick to the second pump. If both pumps are tripped on the overload, phase failure, whatever's caused that to happen, then it will just go into alarm and you aren't going to get any flow out of the system. The system is designed to try to lead lag between the pumps. So you've got a controller, this module in there, and what it's going to do is it's got 2 little lights on it, and it's going to switch by call. So as we enable our floats, first it's going to it's going to kick on pump 1. Next time it has a call for water, it's going to kick pump 2. And it's going to, every time there's a new call, it'll switch between pump 1 and pump 2. And those little lights will just tell you which pump's currently enabled. Pump motors themselves, they're a sealed assembly, simple impellers at the bottom. The assembly itself, there's no maintenance inside those sealed bearings. The assemblies themselves are just got seal-tight connectors in them, and then they do have an anchor tied to cable, so that makes them removable without climbing down into the pits. The elevator is a little bit different because it is only a single pump instead of a duplex, so we've eliminated all of the points where you're going to see multiple lights. You're only going to have a single light. power on, high water, and then a low, pump on or off. That's all that's on that one. So the biggest difference that we're going to see, once again, redundant components, a smaller cabinet. The auto switches are going to be the same. We've just eliminated one disconnect, one pump assembly out of that box. Clean sumps are what's critical to keeping the system running. If the sump is not maintained and kept clean, it's going to plug up, pumps are going to fail. Doesn't end well. Testing the pump is critical. You want to make sure that periodically you do test these. It's better to find out that something's wrong before it's full of water and that you need the system to work. The floats can be adjusted if you find that the levels just are getting too high in the tank. You're not, like I said, it's going to operate. Bottom one's just power, the next ones are actually operators. If you find that the levels are just staying too high or holding too much water, sometimes it can be a smell issue if there's too much standing water in the bottom of a tank. Those can be adjusted up and down. All they are is they just have simple bands that are up and down the pipe that are securing the floats, and that'll hold those up and down. Now, in the event that the pump does fail, the duplex pumps have a set of rails. And these rails slide all the way down to the very bottom of the tank. The pump itself is actually connected to that line, so you can pull the pump out, and it has a disconnect assembly that goes up to the drain line. So to remove that pump, all you simply have to do is pull up on those cables. They'll slide up the rails, and then you can service the pump. The elevator does not have that system. They are just a freestanding down there, so you will have to disconnect them from the line in order to bring them up to service them. Now, the pumps do have a certain capacity. If that capacity is exceeded, obviously you're not going to be able to keep, one too many. It's not going to be able to keep up. If that main line down there fails, for instance, and there's a storm, obviously they aren't going to keep up. They will pump what they can, but do be aware of they do have a capacity rating, and they just see fluid as fluid. So to review, the controls, they do have their control panels on the front, simple on-off switches throughout the system. The lights will show you what's going on if you do need to change something or need to look at something. Most commonly, they work. No one really realizes they're there until something happens. The mechanical systems,
Oh, never mind.
you've got,
I thought he was done. Never mind. Go ahead.
so the mechanic, there's basically, you got to look at it as two different systems in these. We have the electrical, which are the controls and the panels, and then we have the mechanical, which is simply just the pumps and the piping. Any questions?
Yeah, the float switches are independent of the pumps. I mean, we won't even be near them when we're raising and lowering the pumps.
On the elevator unit, they're tied to the same common line, so they're going to be using the existing line that's supporting them. So when you disconnect off, if they're tied together, depending on where you disconnect the pump from the line, those could be in your way. On the other ones where they're on the rails, they're independent, so when you slide it up the rail stays in place, and you can pull the pump, and the floats that are tethered to the line just stay there.
Where's the physical location of that sump?
That's what we were going to go to next, is we'll look at the physical location. The first one, the elevator one, that is actually under the elevator. I don't know if arrangements have been made.
Yep, yeah.
Okay, so we can go look underneath the elevator. You can see exactly where the panel is and where the controls are. The other one is actually just down the hall here. It just goes directly underneath. There's an access door that we'll go through, and then it just follows around under the floor.
What kind of water, or what are they pumping? What is it for? What is it pumping?
They're designed as just wastewater pumps. So the idea would be, like the duplex pumps are ran underneath the bottom of all the drain lines. If there's a line that breaks, failure, groundwater seepage, things like that, it's just going to pump that water out and pumps it directly into the drain. It's not pumping it out to very far lines and things like that. The elevator unit could pose problems if, where it is a hydraulic elevator. If the hydraulics did fail catastrophically, it's going to fill that room, of course, full of hydraulic fluid, and then it's going to treat it as any other fluid and start pumping that out into the drain too. So they will pump pretty much anything that's non-debris. So if you start getting a bunch of driftwood or something in them, they can cause troubles. Where these are installed in places that they're more of a redundancy, you're probably not going to see a lot of debris build up in the tanks. They're not going to see sludge and build up that most things see. Commonly you'd want to flush them periodically though, once a year or so. Run the pumps, make sure they'll pump things out, just keep things clean and clear. Avoids problems later down the road.
Just one question.
Sure.
On the duplex unit, you made mention of a phase failure possibility. I assume that's not a 110 unit, it's high
Yeah,
voltage.
they're 208 three-phase pumps on them. If you do single-phase, any three-phase motor, you're going to see higher amp draw on the remaining legs. That's when those overloads will trip. They're manual reset. That's going to protect the motor so you don't just burn it up, but the downfall is it's not going to run until someone does reset it. And those would just be tied back to whatever the electrician's tied to in the panels. There are points available on those units that they can be tied into the alarm points and the run points. They should be, that would be up to the controls of exactly where they've tied those in and how they've tied them in, what alarm points it's going to give you when those go off. So this is our elevator sump. It's a very shallow sump, as you can see. Pump sits right there. There's our operators, there are floats. Here's our control box and our panel, our alarms and our resets right on the side of it. Contactors are inside. They are weather rated or NEMA 4 enclosures, so they are going to withstand if the room does flood and keep things online, and they will continue to pump. We've got our checks, and it's just going to go directly up. You can see our wastewater and then pump out of the room. Okay, this is our sumps. So our sumps are down here. Here's our motors. We can see the lower operator float right there. And we can see our upper floats and our alarm float all the way up at the top. Those are the rails that we've talked about. We go down and connect to it. You have the cables. All you have to do is grab the cables that are coming all the way up to the top. And you pull those pumps up, they will slide all the way up the rail to service them. Control panel, showing us our lights, what our current statuses are. The alarm silence on the side and don't have to open the unit. This one's the same setup as what we saw in the other unit. We have our switches that we talked about. Right now we can see everything's in off. We can put it to auto. We can test operation. And everything will just function as an automatic operator. These are our overloads in the event they just trip and they go to the side like that. Just a manual reset to turn back on. Alternator, we can see pump 1 is currently selected as the operating pump. If we operated it, next time it tries to call, it's going to call for pump 2. That's all there is to that.
Is there an industrial bid to flush that sump out?
There isn't anything down here to flush it with. You'd have to run a hose or something in order to actually flush the sump. If they do build up, it just, when you start getting things into the impellers, that's when you start running into trouble.
So there's no water supply close?
No. Any other questions on it?